What's up, everyone? Connor Daly here. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm an IndyCar driver, NASCAR driver, driven a lot of different things in my life, Formula One cars even at one point as a test driver. But I'm here to try to explain maybe a few other things that you might not know about the small things in racing. And this specifically will be about helmets. What are the difference between IndyCar helmets compared to Formula One helmets specifically, and kind of how they've changed over the years. And so with this video, we're going to start right here with the modern Indy 500 helmet that I just used this May, compared to the pre-Aeroscreen era. And a little bit later in the video, I'll bring out a Formula One helmet and show you the differences between those. But let's start here. So if you want to start immediately with the modern helmet, we see, air hoses and not as much aero pieces, and the helmet is in very clean shape. So compare that to pre-aero screen. This helmet here was the last Indy 500 helmet that I ran before the aero screen, which was with Andretti Autosport. We finished 10th, but this helmet is absolutely destroyed. And when there wasn't an aero screen, you basically just took so much debris at 230 plus miles an hour that you would almost chip all the paint off. Now, let's look at a few of the other differences immediately. So if you notice, no visor panel on the newer helmets, big visor panel on the older helmets. This visor panel here that you see was put on after some of the accidents like James Hinchcliffe had, where he had a small piece of a spring or something hit his head. Felipe Massa as well in Formula One, he had a spring hit the top of his helmet. So this was done by the manufacturers to basically create just more safety for us, for our heads. Obviously, head impacts are the most dangerous. And I also want to point out a few of the aero differences. So if you notice on top of this helmet, you see almost like a bit of a wing or a spoiler. And on the front, and you'll see this similar on a Formula One helmet as well, is a chin wicker as well. Now here, there's no aero devices on this new helmet because we're out of the air now. In the aero screen, we don't have to. We don't need aero devices. We're literally you could open your visor at 220 miles an hour because there's really not any air coming at us at all. So the only air piece we have now on the modern helmets is purely to get us air because it is so hot in the car and it's insane. So the air feeds through this little hole, and that basically gets as much to our head as possible, but I'm not going to lie, it kind of sucks. But back in the day, 2019, you had to use these aero pieces very, very carefully and very importantly. So this aero piece on top of the helmet here, if it moves half an inch or an inch forward, half an inch backwards or an inch forward, that changes how your head moves in the car at 230 miles an hour. That's very important. If you go out, sometimes you'll go out of the pit lane, let's say first day of practice, and you haven't really got to run the car yet at speed. All of a sudden, the first lap you do at 210, 250 miles an hour, your head starts to fly off. Well, you got to adjust your aero pieces on the helmet. This aero piece on the front, the chin wicker, works with the aero piece on the top. And we even got so technical with controlling where the driver's helmet is that when there was no aero screen in 2019 at Andretti Autosport, Andretti Global now, we had specific headrests to keep our heads at the exact point they needed for maximum aero efficiency. So a lot of differences between the helmets of then and then the helmets of now. You'll also notice that the visor port is actually just smaller on the newer helmet. That's because they basically integrated the safety of the visor panel into the front of this helmet, the newer helmets. These are obviously both Bell helmets. And that means smaller visor port, but more safety right here. And it's definitely not as much weight because this was basically just an added piece that almost just was kind of a reaction to a lot of the things going on. But again, safety first. And so right off the track, this helmet is, completely destroyed, dirty. And then this helmet almost looks essentially brand new after a 500-mile race. So pretty interesting to see the differences between basically two separate eras of IndyCar, only within a couple years of each other. But those are the main differences between pre-aero screen and post-aero screen. Obviously, one more thing, the everyone's like, well, where's your drink bottle? Drink bottles can come in many different shapes and sizes. So for the Indy 500 currently, we have to get the drink bottle basically through the front of the helmet. There are a lot of drivers who actually run it. You could run three different systems. There's one system that you use a button that you could actually shoot the water or whatever, Gatorade or whatever it is, towards your mouth, and you better catch it. Or you can have a straw like I have. The straw I have comes through the front, and you basically can kind of just push it in towards your mouth during like a yellow flag. It's really hard to do under green flag. But if you notice the tiny little hole right there, that's for the drink bottle, and that kind of goes around and back towards the drink bag. Usually sits behind you or in the side pod someplace. Now this helmet, I actually forget where the drink tube was on this. I'm fairly sure we fed it through underneath the helmet and through the side of the pad here in the helmet. There's multiple ways to do it. It's all driver preference, but you could walk the entire IndyCar grid today and see 4 or 5 different ways that they do drink tubes. So those are the difference between a modern Indy 500 helmet and an Indy 500 helmet from 2019. Now I will show you a little bit of a difference between the modern Indy 500 helmet and a modern Formula One helmet. All right, so you've seen the difference between a modern Indy 500 helmet and also a Indy 500 helmet from 2019, pre-aeroscreen. So now we're going to go to a modern Formula One helmet. Obviously, not exactly current. Fernando Alonso drives for the Aston Martin Formula One team now. But Fernando, good friend of mine, we obviously raced against each other at the Indy 500 a couple times, and we traded helmets. So this was basically straight off the track. You can see it with all the stone marks on the front. He signed it on top there, but you'll notice a few things right out the gate, and it's similar to the Indy 500 helmet pre-aeroscreen with the chin wicker. So the chin wicker for them, again, they do very high speeds, Formula One cars, obviously, and aerodynamic efficiency is super important for them. So no top wicker for Fernando. Obviously, probably a drag reduction item that they don't need in Formula One. But this for sure is the most important aero piece for a helmet because I know that keeps your head down. You definitely don't want your head going up on a straight line. And you'll notice that he's also got a seal on the visor here. Now, for us, a lot of the times in the wet, you'll use a visor with a seal on it so you don't get any water that seeps down into the facial area of the helmet. We don't have seals really on our helmet because, well, we don't really get any air or anything in there anyway. So you kind of want to have it as much air as you can possibly get no matter what. But just a bit of a difference between the way the visor opens. It's, I would say, a little bit tighter, but just kind of keeps everything sealed when the visor's closed. And again, maximum efficiency. Also, tear-offs. Boom, right out the gate. We no longer have tear-offs, obviously, because we don't need it. Our tear-offs come from the windscreen. So Formula One drivers are obviously still using tear-offs. You need to be able to use that because, well, you got to be able to see. Just like I can't see right now in my eye. But anyway, those are the main differences. There's, again, some of the small things that you might notice. We use the same Hans clips. There's nothing that's crazy different about, it's the same safety spec helmet. This is exactly the same helmet as the IndyCar helmet, but just a few small differences, a few small aero pieces here that are for the driver cooling, but not as much as we would have in the current IndyCar helmet. Now, I've also got a slightly older Formula One helmet as well, which I will now show you. This helmet is Carlos Sainz Jr.'s helmet from the Canadian Grand Prix 2016. Again, Carlos Sainz Jr., a good friend of mine. We raced against each other in the F3 days. Now, this helmet, again, has the visor panel for safety. So this was kind of the first very early era of the visor panel. And again, something that I wanted to show that was a little bit different is the drink tube. So the drink tube was still in this one, and their drink tube is a little bit more integrated than our drink tubes. And I noticed that on a couple other helmets that I've seen recently. Is this would obviously connect to a piece on the car that feeds a drink to them as well. But yeah, similar to what we ran pre-aeroscreen. And there's also one other thing that I would like to point out that I thought was interesting. So this rear wing on this helmet here. So a lot of the Arai helmets back in the day, everyone would run this same rear wing. There was often rear wings on the Schuberth helmets as well, which I can show you. But this rear wing was actually banned by IndyCar. We actually can't run that for some safety reason. I'm actually not sure why, but you can't run a rear wing on any of the helmets, honestly. And that was kind of a weird one for us. But if you noticed any of the Arai helmets for years, you'd see the Formula One guys with this rear wing and the IndyCar guys with nothing. So we would actually also have this front wing on the Arai helmets banned for us as well. So there's really not, you have to have a specific aero piece, and there are certain pieces that don't check the safety boxes for IndyCar. But again, really cool helmets here. These are really special to my collection, but hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of a look at what the small differences are between why we wear what we wear and the reasoning behind it, and the safety advancements that we've made over the years. And hopefully you've enjoyed it. So before I let everyone go, I want to do one last comparison from some of the helmets that I've got in my collection. These are two Schuberth helmets, which are some of the most high-end helmets that you can get your hands on, if not the most high-end helmets you can get your hands on. This being Daniel Ricciardo from last year with Scuderia Toro Rosso / AlphaTauri / whatever they are now, and good old Jimmy Johnson, NASCAR legend, came over to do IndyCar. This was from the Nashville race in 2021. So not a NASCAR helmet, but an IndyCar helmet. And you'll notice right away, these are the same helmets and no air hose on top of the F1 helmet. That's the main difference, right? Again, we have to get air to our faces through a tube that connects to the side of the aero screen. So you notice immediately that is the big difference. And also, Jimmy runs the visor panel as well, which that's actually also driver preference. If you notice, Elio Castroneves actually still runs the visor panel for a little bit more protection. And in the Formula One situation, no visor panel here. So just trusting the safety advancements of the front of the helmet, and a few more tear-offs. But actually, the fun thing about Jimmy too, Jimmy ran tear-offs even though he had the aero screen. So I always asked what that was, but there are so many small things for driver preference that you just have to get right. And I really hope you guys enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun. If you like this video, please leave a like on it. Please comment on it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what else you'd like to see from a video. These are some of my favorite helmets. Got to thank the boys for the trades. Really means a lot to have these in my collection. So check out another couple videos on the channel. Check out the Speed Street podcast. It's been a lot of fun to do and to hopefully just educate more people on the sport of IndyCar and racing in general. So we'll see you on the next video.